that indicate? Well, if he's being honest with the driver, he's not sure if she's impaired. Hey folks, John Bateman here. Just wanted to add a little note on this video. This is not a celebrity video, but it's got some interesting issues related to DUI investigations and enforcement. I have tried to edit out the defendant's face with some success. My thought process behind that being I don't really want to broadcast what somebody would probably say is one of the worst nights of their lives for your education. So I'm trying to keep it as private as possible, but that's a difficult thing to do. So please join me in this next video and let's see what we can learn. Thanks. Hello, my name is John Bateman. I'm a DUI lawyer in South Carolina, and on this channel I break down real DUI arrests, traffic stops, and body cam footage so we can go over what went right, what went wrong, and what could happen in court. If you've ever wondered, should you talk to police during a DUI stop? Should you refuse a breath test? What mistakes people make when they're getting arrested? You'll learn it here using real cases. We have a video coming up today from Florida Man Arrest Cam taking place in Florida. Hopefully it's a good one. So let's look and see what we've got. If you have a video you'd like for me to review, please leave a link in the comments. All right, with nothing further ado, let's get started here. How's my levels in line? Looks good.
I'm just asking you, do you want to do the exercises or not? You're not required to do them. It's your choice.
All right, we got the officer en route to the arrest here.
We're going to be on the on-ramp to eastbound Crosstown, just east of Willow. Cut me off. Unbelievable.
All right, so
put down the back window, but not the front window.
Basically what's happened is the car has cut off the officer. That was in the description to the video. We, on the body cam, as normal, don't get much in the way of vehicle in motion. That's stage one of the DUI investigation process. Here we are in the personal contact phase where the officer is approaching the vehicle, making contact with the driver, find out, you know, what's going on with the driving offenses here.
Hello, ma'am. You have a driver's license, insurance, or registration, please? 671.
All right, you see the officer asking for driver's license, registration, proof of insurance. That's usually the first divided attention task that's given to a driver, asking for 3 different forms of documentation in one question. That can be a difficult thing for somebody that's impaired by alcohol, but it can also be a difficult thing for anybody.
Let's see if 670 can respond to my call, please. Thank you. Do you have your driver's license?
I lost it at my friend's
I can't hear you out here. I'm sorry.
I lost it at my friend's house.
Lost your driver's license, it looks like.
54, just a supervisor. All right, do you have your insurance? And by the way, the registration you had in me is 2 years.
All right, looks like the officer's calling for a supervisor. If I had to guess, the officer's probably noticing the odor of alcoholic beverages at this point. Not sure what else the officer might be seeing, but it looks like it's heading in the direction of an arrest. That's probably why the officer's calling a supervisor out on scene, especially if we're looking at a male officer, female driver. If she gets arrested, they're going to have to search her, and a lot of times they're going to want a female officer to perform that search.
Expired. Do you have an updated?
It's not. I do. Yeah, I literally just.
Okay, it shows 7/24 of 2022.
Yeah, my new sticker is literally
Ma'am, I can barely hear you. I'm sorry. Out here, the cars going behind me is very hard to hear. What did you say?
My renewed sticker is on my counter.
Okay.
All right, so we've had a couple glimpses of her eyes. I am in the original video, her face isn't blurred. I'm blurring faces in the videos where it's not public individuals because I don't want to rebroadcast somebody's worst day and have them identifiable. But I've got a couple glimpses of the eye here, and it doesn't look particularly red, which is something sometimes you're looking for, or an officer would be looking for. Her speech patterns. She seems fairly well oriented to where she is and what's going on. Doesn't have her registration sticker. It's at home, but her speech patterns don't seem to me to be super impaired sounding. I've never met this lady before, so I can't say for sure.
If she needs to drive, that's fine, but I do have my...
Why would she have to drive if your car's expired?
It's not expired. If you run my plates, I just renewed my tags this month.
All
right, and if some of this speech sounds strange, it's because it's been sped up. Not by me.
Okay, are you Annette or are you Kristen?
Annette.
Okay, so you're the registered owner of the vehicle. Do you have the insurance?
On my phone.
180, 34. 180.
Do you mind if I put my window down for my dog?
The back one? Yeah, you can put it up. Or you want to put it down? It's already down, just so you know.
All right, so something that's kind of I don't know if it's strange or not. I'm not in Florida, but this late at night, it looks like according to the body cam, if that camera's accurate, we're talking about 10 o'clock at night, having a hat on like a cap pulled that low. Probably the officer's looking at that and thinking, hey, why is this individual trying to hide their eyes from me? A lot of experienced DUI practitioners put a lot of stock in the appearance of the eyes and how that looks during HGN specifically, but just in general. And you also find officers, right now making observations. Anything that they see that might be evasive or trying to hide symptoms of alcohol use. Sometimes you'll see somebody chain smoking, light up a cigarette, start smoking it, or using mouthwash or chomping on gum. Again, all those trying to fight the odor of alcohol, probably, or at least that's the conclusion that the officer is likely to make. So might be a similar conclusion forming in the officer's mind regarding this hat, because again, from the angle, it looks like it's pulled pretty low. There's not a whole lot of sun to be worried about, although the officer does have a flashlight.
What's the purpose for being pulled over?
You don't know why? You ran me off the road. You were in the right lane, and when I went to merge to get on the crosstown, you just went straight into my lane.
I used my blinker.
Yeah, but you can't run somebody off the road just because you have your blinker on
I
it.
didn't run you off the road, sir.
All right, I'm not going to argue with you, but I slammed on my brakes because you cut in front of me, and had I not stopped, you would have had an accident.
All right, so at this point, the officers made two statements: one that he had to brake hard, and one that she ran him off the road, or ran him off the road. He had to brake, or he would have hit her. Again, potentially a traffic violation, of course, but does it mean she's impaired, or does it, or not? It could be an indicator that somebody's impaired, of course, but that needs to be proved.
Are you trying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to pull up your insurance.
It's loading. Is there a more productive routing?
Well, you have to click on it. It's just sitting there. It's not loaded. I gotcha. Okay, where are you girls coming from?
If we were looking at take home from this exchange, it really indicates the importance of having your necessary documents for driving in an easy to find place. So, your driver's license, your registration, and your proof of insurance. If you have them all, and you have them all in an easy to find place, Now, granted, you probably have your license with you in your pocket versus somewhere in your car, but at least the other two documents, the license, the registration, proof of insurance, in an easy to find place. That's going to make it easy to get, easy to give to the officer, and the officer's not going to need to necessarily push more. However, that said, if the officer's smelling alcohol, a lot of times they're going to ask the driver to get out of the car as a matter of course and perform field sobriety.
Ma'am?
This is the app that's uploading.
Okay, where are you girls coming from? All right, do me a favor. Go ahead and step out of the car for a second, okay?
For what?
Because I need to speak to you for.
All right, so he's getting the driver out of the car. At this point, we know where this thing's headed, right? We're going to do standardized field sobriety. But at this point, the officer, according to his training, should be looking for signs of impairment during what's called the exit sequence. So this is when the driver is exiting the vehicle, and we're looking for certain things like maybe having to climb out of the car, use the vehicle for balance, tripping and falling. Let's see if we can find anything that indicates she's impaired based on her exiting the vehicle.
A little bit. Step out of the car, please. Just walk right back over.
All right. What did you see? I'll give you 5 seconds. Because I didn't see anything. So the answer to me is nothing. If you saw something, put it in the comments. But what I saw is her using, it looked like she was holding the phone with both hands. So she didn't need to even use one hand to exit the vehicle and get out. Had no problems with balance or anything else. So if we're treating the exit sequence, the sequence of the lady exiting the car as a field sobriety test, I'd have to look at that as a pass. I'd have to look at that as a pass. Now, were I to read this officer's police report, would the police report say Miss X had no problem getting out of the vehicle and did so the same way as any other reasonably sober individual would? I have yet to see that on a police report. It tends to be that evidence of non-impairment does not make it to the reports, in my experience at least.
Right here. Let me kill my lights for a second. Stay right here so we don't get hit by a car.
All right, so the officer's killing the lights. One reason for that is officers are instructed to at least turn off forward-facing flashing lights for the HGN specifically. Again, because it can make it difficult for the eyes to, or for the officer to observe nystagmus, and potentially could induce nystagmus. I'm curious about that. I think that would be called opticokinetic nystagmus. There's hundreds of different types of nystagmus.
I said, stay there so we don't get hit by a car. Just give me 1 second to turn my front lights off. 670 has to observe me doing SFSTs. That's why I called.
Oh, that's interesting. So 670 has to observe me doing SFSTs. I wonder who 670 is, right? That might be the reason that we had a supervisor call earlier.
Yep. All right. Do you have any medical problems?
No.
Are you currently sick or injured?
I am a little sick, but I'm not injured, no.
Okay. Have you had any medications?
No.
So you're not taking any medications?
No, sir.
All right. Have you had?
All right. So this is part of the medical screening before we start standardized field sobriety test. The officer is supposed to ask the individual if they have any physical impairments, medical conditions, things like that. And the reason for that, obviously, if somebody's got back, leg issues, balance issues, it can affect the validity of the test. Usually what you're going to see is you're going to see a driver say no, even if they do have, some kind of a chronic condition, because quite frankly, most people, they don't realize what they're about to be asked to do, one, and two, not many people really want to discuss their medical history to a stranger, whether they're wearing a uniform or not.
Had any drug use today?
No, sir.
All right. You know what my next question is, right?
What is your next question?
How much alcohol have you had to drink tonight?
0.
Are you sure about?
All right, zero alcohol. I think 0 alcohol might be the closest or it might be second place to the most frequently asserted amount. Most common, at least in my jurisdiction that I see in cases, is 2 beers. 2 beers, which for most people is not going to be an impairing amount, depending on body weight.
Okay. As part of my investigation to help determine your level of sobriety, I like to check your eyes. Is that okay? All right. All right, if you could stand there but face me this direction so that my headlights aren't in your face. All right? That's fine. All I need you to do is put your feet together side by side. Take your hat off temporarily just so I can check your eyes and hold it down by your side. Okay, just hold it down by your side, just like that. All right, can you tell me what color that light is?
It's red.
All right, do you wear any contacts?
No.
All right, or glasses or anything like
Not
that?
right now, no.
Okay. So what I need you to do is I need you to focus on that light and follow it as I move it, but with your eyes only, okay? So don't move your head.
All right, so this is interesting. The officer's got the stimulus. You can see it right here. Use my handy swizzle stick, stern stick. Got the stimulus, but as you can see, the stimulus is topped with a red light. I don't think that there's anything necessarily disqualifying about using a red light for the HGN portion of the standardized field sobriety test. My concern would be that if you're observing the eyes and you're observing them using a red light, it is not going to, it's not going to, any colored light is going to change the color of the whites of the eyes. So if I am trying to demonstrate for a jury on a dash cam, or sorry, on a body cam, what color the eyes are, I would want a just a white light. Just a white light, so you could see, you know, if the whites of the eyes are reddened in any way, which, you know, you'd expect to see potentially with alcohol impairment, potentially marijuana impairment, THC. So I'd be nervous about using a red light for this, just because we're trying to see not just the movement of the eyes of the pupils, but also the color of the eyes themselves. I've never seen a red light, so that's curious to me.
Out of your body, just your eyes, okay? Make sure to keep.
All right, it looks like some of my concerns might have been unfounded here. You might not be able to see her eyes because I'm intending to obscure her face, but the whites of her eyes are looking white. They're not looking bloodshot or blown out like you might expect for somebody who's had a lot of alcohol to drink.
Keep your head straight.
So I'm going to kind of pause it so you can see it. She's not really following the stimulus very well, as far as, you know, smoothly tracking it with her eyes. So I'm having a difficult time assessing if I'm seeing nystagmus. It's all right, so we've searched, or the officer has completed the first sweeps where he's looking for lack of smooth pursuit. That would be the eyeball tracking. Almost the eyeball's movement looks like windshield wipers on a dry windshield. They kind of tick along tracing the stimulus. You're going to see that come into play at somewhere around, I believe, a 0.06 BAC. If it's alcohol induced. If it's not alcohol induced, I can't make any promises as to what the BAC is, and neither could anybody. Now we're checking for distinct and sustained nystagmus at maximum deviation, where the officer is putting the stimulus all the way out, and we're looking for nystagmus. And again, the important thing is you got to keep that stimulus out there for 4 seconds so we can make sure that it's sustained nystagmus. It looks like he hit 4 seconds on the right side. Now he's on the left side. And he should be doing 2 passes per eye. So.
You should look directly at the light from you.
I'm getting a little annoyed because.
Well, I understand that, but I have to make sure you're okay to drive before we go any further, okay? And this is what we do to help determine that.
All right, so looking there, she's not really, it looks like, at least what I'm seeing whites of the eye in the corner here. Well, sorry, it's opposite for y'all. So in the corner here, I'm seeing white of eye, so she is not at maximum deviation. At least that's my read on this situation. So I don't know that we can look at this and determine. I'm not seeing nystagmus here.
Make sure you keep your eye on the light. Look in the background, okay?
So she's not really, she'll look out there, then look back, look out. So I'm not sure how we're going to get valid results from this. Without seeing the officer's report, usually you don't get the results of the test from the body cam.
And keep your head straight.
Are you just looking for a reason that I'm not good to drive?
No, but I am a DUI officer, and it is my job to make sure people are driving
I
safely.
understand that.
This is just one of several different things that we have people do to ensure their safety for driving, okay?
All right, so now the officer is testing for the onset of nystagmus prior to 45 degrees. That's when they move the nystagmus very slowly from center. And if the individual is at a 0.08 BAC or higher, the idea is that that eyeball is going to start shaking before the officer gets to 45 degrees. So at that point, the officer should stop the stimulus, hold it still, and confirm the presence of nystagmus. That's where I see officers messing up a lot on this test, is they'll go slowly out, slowly out, slowly out, slowly out, slowly out. They'll see it and they'll straight back in. Not supposed to do that. Supposed to hold it steady and confirm the presence. So let's see how he does. Looks like he might have. It looks like he's stopping before he hits 45. It looks like he's stopping before he hits 45, but I can't confirm the presence of nystagmus on the body cam. He might have seen something that I'm just not seeing. Now vertical nystagmus. Again, this is for the this is meant to be indicative of the presence of an abnormally large dose of alcohol. It's rare that we see this in the field.
Make sure to keep your chin down.
And I'm not seeing it on the camera. It doesn't mean
It's just abnormal to follow a light that is beyond your peripheral.
Well, when you're driving, you have to be able to keep your eyes on the
I
signs and
understand that.
lights.
Never been in
Just
an
look directly at this.
accident.
And that's it's hard to follow. She makes a good point. It is hard to follow the stimulus, and you're putting your eye in fairly stressful positions as far as like the stress on the eye and on the fine muscles of the eye. But the officer is a little incorrect when he says that, hey, you've got to be able to look at signs. Yeah, you do. That's not what this test is. This test is not testing your ability to look at a sign. And I think most drivers don't understand that, like, you're not being tested on your ability to follow the instructions. You're being tested to see whether your eyes are demonstrating what the officer is looking for, which is alcohol gaze nystagmus, one of hundreds of different sorts of nystagmus.
Okay. All right, you can relax. All right, would you do some sobriety exercises so I can be sure you're okay to drive, like walk the line and stand on the light?
All right, so the officer said the magic words, which are, would you mind doing some sobriety exercises so I can make sure that you're good to drive? What does that indicate? Well, if he's being honest with the driver, he's not sure if she's impaired. So should she do some field sobriety tests at this point? Hey, I might be Monday morning quarterbacking, but the answer in my head is no. The officers just stated they're unsure as to whether she's impaired or not, and if they're unsure as to whether she's impaired, then conviction beyond a reasonable doubt would be a very difficult thing for the state to get in court. So at this point, if I was her lawyer, I would be advising her to remain silent, and look, she's going to get arrested. Regardless at this point, she should go ahead and stop it there, at least in South Carolina. That would be my advice. advice.
What happens if I don't?
Well, just so you know, you're not legally obligated to do them. So if you don't want to
Well,
do
I
them,
know that, but are you?
well, I'm explaining. So you're, like I said, you're not legally obligated. So if you don't want to, that's fine. However, it doesn't negate me for having to do my job. So I would still have to make a determination as to whether or not I had enough probable cause to arrest you for DUI, based only on what I know so far. Okay, which is your drive.
All right, so let's go through what the officer has so far, right? We've got driving behavior that could be indicative of impairment, right? The officer testifies that she cut him off while he was driving. He had to either slam on the brakes or was run off the road, one of the two. Then we've got the stopping sequence. We don't have, that's something we usually only see on the dash camera when the vehicle is stopping or pulling over and stopping on the side of the road. Excuse me. So at that point, we don't have any indication that she was showing signs of impaired driving, which to me indicates that she wasn't showing signs of impaired driving. Exit sequence, we talked about that earlier, right? She gets out of the car, she looks good. She did have trouble providing the necessary documentation, but it sounds like she doesn't physically have that documentation in her presence. Maybe an odor of alcoholic beverage, probably, if that's the reason that she had to get out of the car. HGN, no idea what the results are on that, because even if the officer performed it correctly, it looked like she was not dedicated fully to complying with moving her eyes the way she should have. If this was my client, I wouldn't have a hard time with the jury seeing that video footage of the HGN, because quite frankly, I didn't see it. Her eyes look, don't seem to be bloodshot. Her speech might be somewhat affected. It might not be how she'd sound on a Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. But I've never met the lady, so I can't say. And I doubt the officers met this lady either. So what do we have? Really not much. And then the officer saying, hey, I want to make sure you're good to drive. So that indicates the officer's unsure at this point. If this is all the officer has, then I don't see this as a big issue for the young lady here in court. But let's see what decision she's made, because we've got the threat. If you don't do these tests, I'm going to arrest you. I think he's going to arrest this young lady anyway. But let's find out.
Having things that I notice while speaking to you, and also what I see in your eyes. Okay.
Okay.
So it's up to you. I can't.
So he must have seen something in the eyes during HGN that indicates impairment that we couldn't see on the video on the body cam, which, I can admit that that's the case sometimes.
Force you to do it. There'd be two exercises. One where you walk on a straight line, turn around and walk back.
And notice the officer is using the term exercise, not tests. Depending on the jurisdiction, that's the preferred verbiage, because the problem with a test is you expect it to be pass fail, and the refrain when it comes to field sobriety testing is that it's all the evidence taken together, not whether you passed or failed. I disagree with that. I don't think that's an accurate statement of what the literature would say. But
And the second one is you'd stand on one leg for a little amount of time, about 30 seconds.
I understand that, but if I don't do what you want me to do,
Well, it's not that I want you to do it. I'm asking you to do it because I have to make a determination as to how impaired you are. And I have to make sure that you are or are not physically impaired. And that's some of the things we use to do that.
I understand that. I understand your point of view, but I also understand my point of view when I have to go to the lawyer who is.
Well, you're not privy to an attorney right now. You would be privy to an attorney if you were arrested and charged and you needed to defend the
You
charge.
guys can
Right?
do whatever you want.
No, that's not true. We don't arrest sober people. My whole goal is to make sure people are driving safely. That's it. I believe that there's a possibility.
You're just
I
pissed
believe
off
you
that
could.
I cut you off
Well, that's not very safely, though, is it?
in a manner.
You can't cut somebody off in a safe manner. I'm not going to argue that. I'm just asking you, do you want to do the exercises or not? You're not required to do them. It's your choice.
It is Florida, and we do drive aggressively to be able to get what we want.
Okay, well, I mean,
all right, so now, what can I say? The right to remain silent is a very important right, and I've never met an attorney, or I've never had a case where my client kept their mouth shut, and I wish they had talked more. let me put it that way, right? And part of the reason is this: the more this driver talks, I imagine the more impaired she's going to look. Just because she's giving herself the opportunity to make statements that might contradict prior statements. She could potentially react to stimulus in a way that to the officer or to a potential juror would look like something an impaired person would do. Just don't. I would say don't give yourself the opportunity to have your words misinterpreted or anything like that, and just remain silent. Let the officer do his job. I haven't seen anybody talk an officer out of an arrest. Can it happen? Maybe. If it was me, I would just remain silent, and I do this all the time.
Is that a yes or no?
Not impaired driving. I lawyer all the time.
If I deny sobriety test, like, what do y'all do?
Well, at this point, if you don't do them, if you refuse to do them, I'd have to make a decision.
All right. So yeah, this is. I am enjoying that she is testing the officer, saying, "Hey, if I refuse, what are you going to do?" And the officer really doesn't want to say, "If you refuse, I'm going to arrest you." But that seemed. Let me know if you feel differently. That seems to be the tenor of what's going on. You do the test, or I'm making a decision based on whatever I've got so far. I don't think he means he's going to set her loose.
What's your decision?
Well, I haven't made that decision yet. I have to wait for your answer first so that I know what to do.
It's just,
Do you want to do the sobriety exercises or not?
I would
It's a simple
love to get
question.
my dog home.
That's not going to happen at the moment. We have to determine this first.
I will do your sobriety test.
Okay.
Are you able to?
Do what?
She's going to take the sobriety test. Let's see how she does. I'm rooting for her, right? I always root for him.
Give me the layout of the sobriety test? Like,
What do you mean? Like explain what to do?
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to do all that. I'm also going to demonstrate it for you so you'll be able to see that, okay? Officer Barley, would you mind walking her to that flat area over there that's not with rushing traffic right by us?
Am I able to be barefoot because my feet are sweaty?
Once you get over there, yeah, I wouldn't recommend walking that whole distance barefoot, but once you get there, you're more than welcome to take your shoes off. Just follow that officer, please.
I'd love to take a look at her footwear.
Also, the land is
Hi, ma'am. If you could walk right up to the end of
Just to
this
see
line
if
for
there's
me,
a heel or
please.
something.
This line I just right here.
If you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
That looks like a pretty sensible sandal.
Make sure there's no rocks. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to use this yellow line in front of us, okay? Now, before we begin, I'm going to give you a series of instructions, and I'm also going to demonstrate it.
All right, going to the walk and turn, right? Looks like we have a physical line. I haven't seen it yet. I'm curious how wide it is.
So if you have any questions about any of the exercise instructions, feel free to ask. I don't have a problem explaining something if you need me to, okay? Any questions so far? All right, so you can put your left foot on that line for me. Make sure it's actually on the line in front of there. All right, take your right foot in front of left, just like this, touching heel to toe, and put your hands by your side against your legs. Now, this is a starting position, so don't move from there till I say begin, okay?
All right, as we've discussed, right, there are 2 potential clues out of 8 that the individual could show during this phase or this stage of the walk and turn. Either they cannot maintain the starting position, which would be if one or both of the feet come all the way off the line, or if the individual starts the test before beginning or being instructed to begin.
Not like this. It's gonna be all the way down. All right, now, when I say begin, you're gonna take 9 steps down the line, then you're gonna turn around and walk 9 steps back. Each step has to be on the line and touching heel to toe. You gotta keep your hands by your side against your legs the entire time.
May I ask for you to do it first?
I will, I'm gonna demonstrate it. I just have to explain things first.
All right, so we already have a deviation from the instructions that NHTSA requires. The officer told the driver that she needed to take 9 steps, heel touching toe. That touching language is incorrect. You have to come according for it to count as a clue, misses heel toe is what he's talking about. That would be the clue, right? If you're taking those heel to toe steps and you miss heel to toe, but you've got a 1/2 inch clearance room on it. You don't have to click heel to toe. I see officers count miss heel to toe when they don't click. Really, if you look at the instructions, you can't. You've got to be within a 1/2 inch of heel and toe.
Just make sure to stay in that starting position before we begin. Well, I need you to stay in the starting position while I explain it. Left foot on the line, right.
All right, you saw that, right? She stepped out of the starting position. Was she unable to maintain the starting position, or was she sitting there thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be standing here for a while. I'll get comfortable." Something we see all the time. So we're already at one of the 2 clues, probably. If I had to look at the report, I bet we had unable to maintain starting position. So that's one of the 2 that would potentially indicate impairment. Why can't I get this thing?
Foot in front of left.
There we go.
Hands by your side against your legs. All right. So from here, it's going to look just like this. 1, 2, 3, all the way till 9. Now, when you get to that last step, you're going to leave your front foot on the line, but take your back foot off. And just like this, with a series of small steps, you're going to turn yourself around, then return your foot to the line and count 9 steps back. So 1, 2, 3, all the way till 9. And during the exercise, make sure not to stop. So you're going to go all the way down, turn and come back without stopping. Do you have any questions on how to do that?
I don't. I'm just annoyed.
I understand that. All right. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and begin.
All right, but hold on, let me follow it. So, did we notice anything? Was anything missing? I'll give you 5 seconds. Right. At the very end, you're supposed to remind the driver to look at your feet, count your steps out loud, keep your hands by your side, and once you begin the test, do not stop until you complete it. That's a required instruction. If the officer had administered walk and turn in this manner at the academy, at least at the South Carolina Law Enforcement Academy, they would not be certified. They would not be certified to perform SFSTs. Is that a problem? I think it's a problem. I think when juries hear, hey, the way you're performing the SFSTs on citizens out here would be a problem to the law enforcement division if you were in a training status. The fact that you're not doing it according to the standards set forward by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration or your law enforcement training agency, I think that's a problem. I think that's a big problem. If I was a juror, I'd have a big problem with that.
Don't forget to count each step out loud.
All right. Unfortunately, here, I'm going to back it up a little bit. Unfortunately, the original uploader of this video fast forwarded through walk and turn. Why would you do that? I don't know, but here it is. So we're going to go as best we can.
I understand that. All right. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and begin.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Don't forget to count each
6,
step out loud.
I'm not.
8,
Okay.
9,
Off the line.
10. All right. So the officer just counted steps offline as one. I don't know if that was valid or not, because you've got to step all the way off the line for that clue to count. So I need to do a closer review of the video, but it didn't look like her foot was all the way off the line. The other thing you notice, the officer interrupts her because she's not counting her steps out loud. Failing to count your steps out loud is not necessarily that big of an issue. But if this is a divided attention test, if she's performing the test, she's dedicating her attention to the tasks, and the officer's interrupting her to remind her of something. All right, well, look, you're introducing another variable into the test, and that's going to affect the validity of the results. Now, that said, look at her steps down the line. She looks like she's hitting heel toe. She's on a pretty good pace. And it wasn't until the officer interrupted her that we saw her start taking extra steps. So right now we've got incorrect number of steps on the way down. That's the only thing I really observed.
Heel to toe, heel to toe.
All right, and then we see the pivot, which is what you see pretty frequently in these videos. Improper turn would be the clue there. So far we have probably, if I looked at the police report, we'd have unable to maintain starting position. We would probably have steps offline, incorrect number of steps, improper turn. So we're at 4 out of 8 at this point, clues. But again, nowhere does the officer say, if you don't turn in this way, I'm going to interpret it as a sign of impairment. Most people think because they were able to walk down the line, turn around, and walk back, that they did fine. Whereas the officer's looking for a number of other potential indicators of impairment that he doesn't tell the driver about.
Turn, arms for balance.
2.
Number of steps.
All right. So here's the other thing that she's doing is, if you look, this kind of makes a little more sense. They're doing the line here. She's just walking the whole line, turn around, walking the whole line back. She's not really counting out loud. She's not counting the number of steps. So she's missing that instruction somehow. The officer counted her for uses arms for balance. So all told, we're probably at 5 or 6 out of 8 clues, which if you just told somebody that didn't know what they were talking about that, they'd say, oh, that's terrible. But you watch the videotape and you're like, I don't think somebody that's impaired is going to do that well walking up and down the line. Period. Me, I've viewed so many of these videos. I just don't. It just doesn't make sense to me that somebody can walk down and back that well. So what you have is these little nitpicky things that to a normal person don't seem that consequential, but to the investigating officer indicate impairment.
Okay, next exercise. You can put your shoes back on or not. It's up to you. Okay, if you can stand right there, right at the beginning of that line. Face my
All right, moving into one leg stand. See how she does.
car, so I do have the headlights this time. Put your feet together side by side, touching side by side, and put your hands together by your side, just like that. Now, this is the starting position for this exercise. So I need you to maintain this position and don't move from here until I say begin, okay? Now, when I do say begin, you're going to choose one foot, either your left or right. You're going to raise it off the ground about 6 inches, about the height of a soda can, all right? Now, when you do that, make sure you point your toes to keep your foot level with the ground. Keep both of your knees straight and your hands by your side against your legs. You're going to look down at your foot that you have raised, and you're going to count out loud starting with 1001. And you just keep counting until I say stop, okay? You have any questions on how to do that?
Yes. Can you repeat that again?
What part?
Everything.
You don't remember any of
You
it?
guys are just so textbook.
Yes, absolutely, because we want to make sure that you understand.
Don't do.
Correct, because these exercises are standardized, and that's how we do it. So let me demonstrate. So from here, it's going to look just like this.
All right, so she's already asked him to repeat the whole thing. She obviously doesn't understand it, but he's going into his demonstration.
1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, and so far until I tell you to stop. Okay? No, you're not moving at all. You're just going to stand on one leg. Okay? Just like I demonstrated. Okay? Do you have any questions about the instructions?
Yes, please.
What did you need?
Please exercise it again.
Okay. When I say begin, you're going to raise your foot 6 inches off the ground,
Which one would you like?
whichever one you choose. Okay? You're going to point your toes to keep a foot level with the ground. Keep your knees straight and hands by your side against your legs. Look down at your foot and count out loud 1001, 1002 until I tell you to stop. Just remember that this is a timed exercise, so don't stop until I tell you to, okay?
Excuse me. All right, so we've got the instructions here.
1000 till 10.
1001, 1002, and just keep counting until I say stop, not until 10. Right? Any other questions? Okay, go ahead and put your feet back together again, hands by your sides. All right.
I'd like to do it first because I highly doubt a man can do that.
Well, these are standardized. We do the same exercise for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're male or female.
Are you able to do it?
Yes, of course. All right.
So,
I'm not here to do the exercise.
All right, so there's some nice treasures in this one. The driver who we've already talked about. If I was her attorney, I'd be happier if she stayed silent. But they're getting to some interesting issues in their conversations here. Excuse me. She's saying, "Hey, can you do it?" "Yes, I can do it." "All right, well, let me see you do it." Because one thing one thing you notice here is the officers never complete the entire test, right? They never do the full 30 seconds. They never do the full 9 steps when it comes to walk and turn. So the driver's saying, "Can you do this?" Yes. Prove it. Well, I'm not out here doing these tests. Okay, but one of the things that if I was a juror, I'd be thinking about is, well, could the officer do these tests? Could they? If the officer's unwilling to show that, then if I'm a juror, I might have a problem with that. That said, I've seen officers on video in videos like this, and they'll stumble during walk and turn, or one leg, not as much on one leg stand, but during walk and turn. I've had officers stumble trying to do the test. Obviously, they're not impaired, but it does tend to make me suspicious, right?
You are. Are you willing to do the exercise?
I'm willing to do the exercise if you are.
Well, I already demonstrated it. I'm not
Ooh, I'm willing to do the exercise if you are.
doing any further than that. Okay?
I'm not.
Because I don't do them. Are you ready to begin? Yes or no? Yes? No?
No.
All right. What are your questions? I already explained to you the consequences or potential consequences of refusing to do them. If you want to refuse, that's fine. Just let me know. But if you want to do them, I'm ready to start. It's up to you.
All right, waiting for the decision, right?
Okay. Place your hands behind your back for me.
Excuse me. All right. So there you go. Going into the arrest sequence.
Please.
My whole thing is
No. We're not doing any of that. Keep your hands behind your back. Just so you understand, as of this point, you are under arrest for DUI. Now, in the state of Florida, when you're arrested for DUI, you are required by law to take a breath test. And when I get down to the jail, I'm going to ask you to provide that breath sample. Do you want to do that, ma'am? You want to take a breath test? Okay, well, refusing to answer me. When we get down there, I'll read you implied consent.
Yeah, so the officer's asking if she'll provide a breath test, but she hasn't been properly advised of her implied consent rights. Florida sounds a lot like South Carolina in that you can't really refuse until you've been advised, except in certain circumstances.
That way, you can make a better decision for yourself after hearing it, okay? Face my car, spread your feet. Do you have anything on you I need to know about? Medications, drugs, weapons, knives, needles, anything? Refusing to answer me about weapons and stuff is not going to change your position here, but if I stick myself, something happens, or if I come in contact with any unknown substance and it causes me any grief, you will be charged with it. You understand that? Spread your feet for me. Spread them, not just stand straight. Thank you.
All right, so it looks like she's being silent now, right? Which I would advise. So I'm going to watch the rest of this out, see if we have any PBT action. It looks like there's not a female cop on scene. I originally suspected they were bringing out a female cop for the search. Looks like they're having an officer perform it. When she gets to the jailhouse, they're going to have a more thorough search probably, and that'll probably be done by
Walk on the side of the
female
car.
officer with detentions or the sheriff's
Did you already
office.
call 1015 for me? All right, thank you. Have a seat inside. All the way.
Can you tell?
Have a seat.
And even now, here, I'm going to pause it. Even now, we should be seeing signs of impairment, right? She's got her hands handcuffed behind her back. Doesn't look like she had any trouble getting into the law enforcement officer's vehicle, which would indicate non-impairment to me.
Is there anything inside your shirt that I need to know about? Because when we get down there, if you are in possession of anything or found to be, they will charge you with it. All right. I warned you. You said your name was Annette. Annette was born in 1969. That's definitely not you. I'm going to assume you're the other owner. And you don't have a license because it's suspended.
Oh,
I thought you
hold
currently have a
on.
business purpose.
Look at that. All right, so we've got the charges up here. It looks like she gave the wrong name at when she was pulled over. It looks like this might be a second offense, DUI second conviction, DUI second offense. So she's in a little more hot water for that.
This is only license for DUI. Ironically. Hey, she is currently suspended for DUI and is driving, and she's a registered owner. So we're going to felon.
All right, so currently suspended for DUI and driving. That is not the situation you want to find yourself in by any stretch of the imagination. Excuse me. So, providing false information about your identity to law enforcement, driving under suspension, these are all big deals. And they're also maybe relevant to the underlying DUI investigation because given the wrong name would tend to conceal somebody's priors. So it looks like there's two owners of the vehicle. There's the driver, and then there's Annette. Annette might be the lady's mother or something along those lines. Gave her mom's name. And the thing that is really unfortunate about the situation is if you look at the beginning, you can see how there's other people in the car. Somebody else could have been driving the car, So the problem is you're not going to find a whole lot of people that have sympathy for somebody who's been suspended for DUI and is driving. Now, it'd be one thing if she was driving, trying to get to work, trying to provide for her family or something along those lines, where she's on the way to the hospital, but if she's on the way home from a night out with the gals, you know what I mean? You got other presumably licensed drivers in the car. This is just a crazy, crazy risk to run. And I don't think any attorney would be happy with a client that did that. So, so what do you think? What do you think? Impaired or not? Despite the fact that she has a prior, I don't think there's enough evidence, in my opinion, to convict at trial. However, when you're looking at DUI second offense and higher, you're going to look at penalties that get a lot more severe very quickly, depending on the state. So I know in South Carolina, at the very least, you go with a DUI second 5-day minimum up to, if she provides a sample 0.16 or higher, 30-day minimum, and it goes up from there, right? So you're looking at a much more precarious situation for a driver that's facing a DUI second offense plus the other charges. So this might be a situation where if it was a DUI first offense, she'd be willing to take more of a chance of going to trial. But if her attorney was able to negotiate a plea that involved no jail time, she might have to take that plea in her mind. Because she might not be able to risk jail time for her job or something like that. So, like I said, things get much more complicated when we get to DUI second offense territory. The penalties get much more severe, and that has a effect on a lot of defendants that they don't want to risk it and go to trial. And even if it's a case like this where I feel like there's merit to the case, there is reasonable doubt as to whether she's impaired or not. You'll see people entering pleas in cases like this where they otherwise wouldn't. On a DUI first offense scenario, just to try to stay out of jail. So that's all for this video. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. If you've got any comments, let me know. I'd love to hear them, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.